is in progress. The recording will be for your classmates who will not be able to attend this particular session. If I send you the link and you were able to attend the class, you can just ignore the link and proceed with your other tasks, whatever the assignment may be. And let me just share nagkamali ako nung huli. Kasi isa kong klase, hindi ko pala na-share yung screen. My goodness. Nagkaklase ako yung mukha ko yung kita. But I will not repeat the same mistake today. I hope that my screen is already presented for the rest of the class to consume, and I hope I do not have anything to be held against me. Sabi nila, anything you say will be held against you. Kaya sasabihin ko na lang ay $1 million. Okay, so chapter 2 of our next lesson, while I am waiting for the screen to load up, reload na nga kita, is intercultural and global communication. We are going to define culture, the dimensions of culture. Well, actually, we only have 2 dimensions of culture. However, things get complicated from there. Even though we say that there are only 2 types of cultures, and also we are going to explain how those dimensions affect communication, because they have an effect to each other. And I told this to my other class, Gen 11, if I am not mistaken, that culture and communication are siblings. Culture and language are also siblings. They are not the same as it is, but they complement each other. If you want to learn another language, let us say the trending language that most people wanted to learn is Korean. I know a lot of people who want to learn Korean. If you want to learn Korean, of course, you have to learn the language too. The culture too. Unlike English. English is another case. You can learn English without even learning the culture itself, because the culture, well, English adapts to the culture. Parang ganun. Why we are going to discuss it later. English is from another culture. Tagalog is also from another culture. Bisaya is also from another culture. And we are going to see where this leads up. Also, we are going to learn guidelines in communicating with others, because you do not need much guidelines if you're talking with people from your own country, right? From the same culture. You do not even need to think about that. Magpopo at opo ba ako pag nakikipag-usap ako kay sir or ma'am? You do not even think of that, right? Whereas, if we discuss another culture, we have to think about those. Also, to identify barriers in intercultural communication. There is also a barrier presented in them. I do not even know why my internet is as slow as the continental drift. Okay, so it already appeared in front of us. Let us discuss this. The first is, of course, these are the objectives, and I already pointed this out to you earlier prematurely because the screen is not loading up fast enough. First one is we think about culture. Let us discuss what culture is. We usually think of culture or society as basically geographical, which means It's a place in the map. It's a place in the world. Or ethnical. May that be geographical or ethnical. What do you mean by this? We oftentimes just concentrate a culture or think of a culture uh, depending on the place on the map. So, for example, is the Eastern culture, which is in the east of the map, and the Western culture, which is on the west of the map. You say that uh, if I say that the Western culture is more liberated than the Eastern one, you can think of course, the Western as the Europe and America. So we have that. We also say that since Japan is a place on the map, since Japan is a geographical location, we can also say that that place also has its own culture. Sometimes that is the case, but mostly we divide it into the East and the West. May that be East Asia, West Asia, or Southeast Asia, or generally we have East, which is Asia in general, and the West, which is the Europe and the European countries and uh, the American continent. Ayun. Ayun, a culture does not create communication, but different communication creates culture. Remember this. Uh, in order for us to have culture, we need to have communication. We need to talk with a lot of people, right? And of course, in the if we talk, we also discuss the manner of talking. Like in Filipino, hindi naman yung po at opo ang gagawa ng kultura, di ba? Hindi yung po at opo ang indicator ng kultura. Hindi po at opo yung indicator ng what do you call this? Nalito ako pagdating sa Tagalog, my goodness. Our culture is using po and opo. So, our culture is, in another way or two, polite or almost polite. Polite tayo in person, but in on the internet, it's another thing. The way we speak, the way we talk, sasamahan natin ng po at opo, indicates our culture. Kultura ng pagiging magalang. Gumagamit ng po at opo, on the one hand, it will indicate that the Filipino is polite or magalang. Ayun. So culture does not create different communication, but different communication or the way we interact with people creates culture. Because you cannot create culture with just yourself. You have to talk with a lot of people. Or you have to talk with people. And the way that we talk with people creates culture. Ayun po. Culture, therefore, in relation to communication, cannot be viewed as something represented by a particular group of people from specific region or location that has exclusive rituals, lifestyle, attitudes, beliefs, and customs. I told you earlier that most of the times, I said most of the times, culture is represented by the location on the map. So the Philippines is a location on the map. Japan is also a location on the map. But if we say that those places represent culture, is a wrong thing to say. Ayun po. Kasi precursor lang yung una eh. Parang we just laid the groundworks for this particular slide. We some people say some people think even us even we think about this that the location on the map has also its particular culture, right? So if you point out Philippines versus Japan, we are going to say that those two places have cultures. But we also say that places do not have the culture. It's the people in those places. So if we say that the Philippines has its own culture is incorrect in a way. But if we say that the Filipino living in the Philippines has or have their own cultures, it's more likely the correct thing to say if you follow my explanation. Ayun. Why? The Filipinos in the Philippines can migrate and go to different places around the globe. However, if they go to Japan, the culture that they have will not change automatically, right? If you, a Filipino, go to Japan, which is a different, totally different country from us, even though we are both Asians, our culture will not change. You are still going to carry your culture with you. However, you are just going to adapt to them. But you still have the Filipino culture. Why? Because if two, three, four, five, uh, a lot of Filipinos gather in one place in Japan, they are not going to observe the Japanese culture. They are going to observe the Filipino culture. Right? Kaiba naman na kakaiba naman na kapwa mo Pilipino ay magbabaw ka pa, di ba? Kakaiba naman na kapwa mo Pilipino ay hihinahunan mo pa yung pagsasalita. No, we do not do that. We know that this is a Filipino, so we know that we are not going to adjust ourselves much because this is also a Filipino. Ayun. A Filipino is a person. Filipinos are people. Filipinos are not a place. So, if we say that Philippines is or has its own culture is an incorrect thing to say. Ayun. The people in that region have the culture, not the region itself. If you follow my explanation. Again, why? Here is another thing. Even though we are in the Philippines, we still hold different beliefs and cultures, right? The Visayan culture is slightly different from the Tagalog culture. In their culture, they do not even use po and opo, and that's okay. In our culture, if we do not use po and opo, at some point that is questionable. But for them, it's not. If we have Visayan friends in this class, pwede nyo i-confirm yun. Kung hindi man, edi... Pero as far as I know, the Visayans do not use po and opo. And it's okay. It's a concern or an issue for the Tagalog kasi tayo ang gumagamit nun eh. Ayan. Hindi naman issue sa atin kung paano mo isasaksak yung chopstick sa kanin, di ba? Halimbawang pumunta ka ng Tokyo. You go to Tokyo, you ordered a bowl of rice, and you just stuck the chopsticks like you're stabbing someone, yung parang nakatayo siya. Ito yung bowl, nakasaksak lang siyang ganun. It's okay for us. We do not even question that because that is not part of our culture. At some point, you are not going to ask for a chopsticks or a pair of chopsticks, right? It's not part of our culture, but if you use them, it's still alright. Doing or speaking different cultures can happen even within the same nation. This is my point earlier. Even though we are in the same nation, if we are all in the Philippines, unless of course you are somewhere else, chances are you are not going to share the same way of speaking as the other person has. Sabi nga nila, iba daw magsalita ang mga taga-Tagaytay kaysa sa mga taga-lowlands, Dasma and such. And another thing, sa mga super highway, I'm speaking in Filipino because this is a Filipino context. Tandaan niyo yung sa Janet 11, may anong tawag doon? Or something like that. Nakalimutan ko yung word eh. Pero kokontesta nila kung saan ba talaga ituturo ang ang purposive communication. Because purposive communication is not about English. It's about the use of language. Ayan. Ayun nga. So, sa mga super highways, yung mga pagitan ng Cavite and Maynila, mga super highway, may mga toll gate. I think that's called super highway talaga. You are going to know, especially if you are an experienced driver, tanungin nyo yung mga driver na kilala nyo, malalaman mo daw na yung truck driver ay taga Maynila o hindi. Pagka daw bigla sila nag-cut sa traffic, taga Maynila yon. Pag hinintay pa daw nila na makapasok ka sa isang road, hindi daw taga Maynila yon. So it speaks the difference between two subcultures within a country. See, even the way that we drive is different from the next. Ayun. Sabi nila yung mga taga, anong sinasabi ni ma'am na principal ko dati? Yung sa kabilang school. Sabi daw niya, ang mga may mga taga Maragondon ba dito? Parang pagalit daw yung tono pag nagsasalita. Which is, pagpunta daw niya ng Tagaytay, nagulat daw siya because a lot of people here in Tagaytay are soft-spoken people. Ayun. So, as you can see, it's still within Cavite, right? But, you're going to be surprised that this one person from one particular city in Cavite speaks slightly differently from you, which is also located in another city or municipality in Cavite. Magugulat ka, ba, yung mga tao doon parang pagalit lagi magsalita, ano? Ay, yung mga tao doon, akala mo nagbabatian lang, yung pala nag-aaway na. Especially in the northern part of Luzon. So, this speaks volume of confirming that even though you are in one nation, different cultures can still exist. So if you just base that on the location on the map, you are going to be slightly incorrect because you are just generalizing. Ayun po. Parang nagulat daw sila, especially from the other cultures. Pagpunta daw nila ng Pilipinas, the first thing that they notice is, first, nabasa ko lang to sa hindi ko naman ma-confirm kasi kasama ako sa sa culture na to, diba? First, they said that the Filipinas are much prettier. Well, I can attest to that. Second one is, we are moody people. Ang moody daw talaga natin. Third one, we are going to discuss that later. Third one is, ano yung isa pa? I forgot the other one. Kala daw nila mahirap na bansa ang Pilipinas. And then, they noticed that there are much more middle class families in here. And isa pa nilang napansin, di ka daw magugutom sa Pilipinas. Why? In every 10 steps that you take, there is a food stall. Diba? Pagsakay mo ng jeep, pagbaba mo, may pagkain, kung saan ka pumunta. But in their countries, especially in America, diba? Kailangan mo pang pumunta sa mga restaurants talaga. Especially in towns. Yun, cultures are created through communication. If a place is empty, then there is no culture in there. Place people in there, they are going to start talking. If they start talking, communication will ensue. If communication ensues, culture will follow. Ayun po. Communication breeds culture, not the other way around. Kasi tinan mo, if you change the way people communicate, you are also going to change culture. Pansinin nyo yun. Kaya sinasabi ng matatanda, diba? Iba, mga kabataan, iba na makipag-usap, iba na ang kultura, mga ganun, diba? There is a big difference in the way that they talk back then to the way that we talk nowadays. Ayun. So, the culture back then is slightly different from ours. Communication shapes culture and culture shapes communication. Yes, tama. Wag kayong malilito ha. Let's go back to this. Culture are created through communication. The key word in there is create. And this one, communication shapes culture, just like what I said earlier. And also, culture shapes communication. Notice that the words used are different. The first slide says create, while this slide says shapes. Ayun po. If you are from a different culture and you go to another culture, the way that you speak will be changed by that said culture. Diba? Pumunta ka ng, for example, is if God willing you are all able to graduate, sana nga, diba? Wish naman nating lahat yun. And you are stationed in some parts of the Philippines, let us say in Visayas, mga ganyan. Wala nangangarap masyadong mapunta doon sa northern part. I do not know why. Parang laging sa ating part, pababa. Ganun. If you go to the Visayas, and they have a culture in there, the way that you speak is also going to be influenced by them. You are not going to influence them. You are going to be influenced by them. And then when you come back here, the way that you speak is slightly different. Kahit yung tono mo, mag-iiba na kaunti. Ayun. Pumunta ka nga ng Batangas, di ba? When you come back here, dala mo na yung kanilang tono. And you also inherited some of the words that they use. We think of culture as something that other people have. May that be unusual clothes, strange food, or odd customs. Ganun naman lagi eh. Right? We think that because we are ethnocentric people, we are going to discuss that later, that other cultures are completely unusual for us. Ang weird naman ng mga tao. Bakit nagbabaw sila pag mamabati? Because you do not practice that. So, in a way, you are going to be thinking that their culture is weird. And you do not think that your culture is weird. Pag may kumain nga ng balot sa inyo, hindi nyo pinapansin. Diba? Whereas balot is is regarded as one of the most disgusting food according to a magazine. Yung nasa taas ng chart nila ay malamang nabasa nyo na yun, sinigang yata, if I am not mistaken. But the other one is, syempre, lumpia, diba? Iilan lang sa atin ang galit sa lumpia. Yung pa nga yung unang tinitingnan sa handaan. Pero ang una kong tinitingnan sa handaan ay spaghetti. That's another thing. If an Italian goes to the Philippines, baka magulat siya sa spaghetti natin. Because generally, spaghettis or pastas are not sweet. Pero sa Pilipinas, matamis. Kasi mas maraming bata dito. Ayan. You also have practices that those from another culture, sarap ng lumpiaan, maalan dyan. Kahit anong anyo ng lumpia pa yan. Sana naging lumpia na lang ako para pag nakita. No. Sige, tuloy tayo ha. You also have practices that those from another culture might regard as odd. Ayun. Yung akala mo normal lang. But if another person from another culture observes that, they're going to think it as weird. Yung nga nabasa ko. One thing that most cultures regard on us is, first, we are moody people. Ang moody daw talaga natin. One moment you are happy, and then the next one you are what? You're quiet. And tapos tayo mga Pilipino, ang hilig pa nating maging pansin nyo, tayo mga Pilipino, ang hilig natin sa, what do you call that word? Passive aggressive. Why? Matampuhin tayo. Again, why? Pansinin nyo, there is no exact English word for tampo. Kasi hindi naman kailangan ng mga Americans yung tampo eh. Because they feel slightly different from us kasi iba yung culture nila. Mapupunta tayo sa dimensions of culture, dalawa, mapapag-aralan natin kung bakit. So this one, you will see that their customs and traditions are kind of weird, but in the same vein, they are going to think that our tradition and culture are also weird. Mandidiri sila sa atin kasi kumakain tayo ng balot. That's one. And another thing is pag pumunta ka ng, for example, pumunta ka ng South America and then you ask for bloods too o dinuguan. They are just going to give you an eye. And another thing is this. If a Spanish person and a Filipino person is told that they are puto, di ba? You are puto. Ikaw na Tagalog, ikaw, no, sorry. Ikaw na Filipino, magiging ano lang, ako, puto? Dahil ba medyo dahil ba cheesy? Pero sweet, ganun. Parang si Sir Isla. If you say that a Filipino is puto, magtataka lang yan. Bakit? Hindi ko gets. Dahil ba cheesy ako on the top, pero sweet naman. Saka colorful, ganun. Colorful ba ang personality ko? But if you say that a Spanish person is puto, eh maganda ka, nasuntukan na yun. Because for them, puto is from the same word as, I can say this in class because this is a language subject. It's from the same word as puta. Ayun. That's why it's offensive for them. Whereas for us, iba naman kasi yung pinanggalingan ng puto natin eh. Austronesian ang pinanggalingan nun eh. For them, it's Spanish. So yun talaga. So pagka sinabihan ko kayo ng puto, you're going to be like, kasi sir sweet, ganun. Sige, tanggapin ko na. Ganun. Pag in-offer mo daw ang puto sa Pilipino, they are going to say thanks. If you offer that to a Spanish, they're going to punch you in the face. We still have this ethnocentric bias. Ethno, which means ethnic, and centric, which means in the center. We have this bias. What is this? Believing that your culture is the benchmark of all other cultures. Thinking that your culture is the correct one. So the other cultures are wrong. Filipinos are generally monogamous. Diba? Pansin niyo sa social media, sino yung huling na issue? Paulo Contis ba? Iba naman yung Paulo na isa pa. Yung Paulo Contis, diba, na issue yata siya. I can be wrong. Sorry about that. Pero the idea is he cheated on another girl while having a wife. And the netizens won't shut up about it, which is, for us, it's a correct thing to say. But if another person says, okay lang naman mag-cheat eh. Nagsasawa din naman ng tao, okay lang naman mag-cheat. What you're going to do is you're going to screenshot that comment and then post it on your timeline and say, or the caption will say, tingnan mo tong bobo na to. Why? Because generally we are monogamous people. Pagka may nangaliwa or nag-cheat, please do not do that. Pakiusap. No. Cheating is a crime. Dapat may batas para doon eh. So if we are going to look at another culture, let us say the Middle Eastern culture that allows a man to have numerous women, provided that he can provide for them, we are going to think of them as sinful people. We are going to be judgmental of them. Yung ganun. Bakit ba itong mga Muslim na to? This is an example. It happens. Sadly, it happens. Ito naman itong mga Muslim na ito kung mga asawin na. Diba? If we say that, we are just using our culture as a lens to view the value of another culture. And it happens. Next one is culture as geography or ethnicity. Let us start by looking at a culture as a structure, place, and national identity that identifies. For example, we have the Australian, Indian, Japanese, Dutch, or Canadian culture. Because basically, that is how we view culture. We just pigeonhole or we just classify them according to where they are. Australian culture is totally different from the American one. I think in Australia, if you say gay, that's totally okay. In the US, if you say gay, if a person is gay, at some point it becomes an insult, which is sad to say insult. Sana matanggal na yung ganung mga mentality. But for the Australians, it's not. May ice cream na nga sila, ang tawag golden gay time. Dalhin mo sa ano yun. Nabasa ko yun eh. Nakalagay dun sa product niya. Golden gay time. Eh nabasa ng Amerikano. Sabi ng Amerikano, wait, what? Sabi ng Australian, oh, sorry. I do not know how funny this is for non-Australian people. Kasi para sa kanila, it's just happy time. Bigyan kita ng ice cream, you're going to be happy. Eat that, and the time that you consume that is the happy time or gay time. For the Americans, that is not the case. Baka may iba pang implications yun. And Filipinos being somewhat Americanized, mas matatawa tayo because we have the American mindset. Medyo Americanized kasi ang Pilipinas. Eh. We also have the Indian cultures. That's how we view culture. We place them, we just pigeonhole them according to where they are, or national identity. This way of seeing culture focuses on the large-scale differences between nations' style of religions, beliefs, ideas, or national dreams, and goals or preferred way of acting. If we just label them as Japanese, we are not making any effort to dig deeper. We just know that they're Japanese, they have a different culture than us, without knowing that even in Japan, there exist a lot of subcultures. Lalo na sa Japan, mas maraming cultures sila, especially subcultures. Mga ganon. They have the kawaii culture, the idol pop culture, even their entertainment has cultures then. If you are in the idol community, ibang-iba yung idol community nila sa atin talaga. If your favorite member of MNL48 announces that they already are in a relationship, it's going to be a surprise, but we are not going to condemn that person. But in Japan, if the girl that they idolize came out with that she is in a relationship, she's going to be hated for it. Toxic talaga yung ano nila, idol culture nila. Ayun. The point is, we do not just use their national identity to identify what kind of culture that they have. Kasi it's a large scale way of looking at things. Ayun. However, we have this, the cross-cultural communication generally compares the communication styles and patterns of people from very different cultural or social setup. Meaning that in this one you can already compare two different cultures. It's better that you are from a culture totally different from those two. For example is, since we are Filipinos, we are going to be biased, of course, then let us just, what do you call this? Let us just compare America to Japan. Using that, we are going to think that, of course, they have two different cultures. For the Americans, being loud is okay, since America is generally an extroverted country. But if you are loud in Japan, you are going to be looked at with disdain. Baka samaan ko pa ng tingin. So, ingay-ingay naman tong taong ko. But they are not going to say that. An American can tell you where you have been wrong. You know what? You should speak properly because I cannot understand what you are saying. Pwedeng ganun. But the Japanese will find another way to say that. Because the Japanese in general are polite people. Americans in general are frank people. Honest sila. If they speak what is in their mind. So, if you have American friends in social media, you are going to notice that. Medyo hindi sila maingat sa pagsasalita. Looking at it in a Filipino sense. Intercultural communication deals with how people from these cultures speak to one another and what difficulties or differences they encounter over and above the different languages they speak. Let's go back to this. Back lang tayo ng isang slide ha. Cross-cultural communication is a comparison. One American may not be speaking to one Japanese, but we can compare. But in this one, let's go back to this slide. This already has interactions. An American talking to a Filipino can share their thoughts and feelings about the difficulties of learning one language to another. Ganyan. And especially, sayang if we are in the face-to-face situation of classes. CVSU have or has this program, exchange program, diba? So that's why we see African brothers or brethren, kasi may mga babae din, African brethren in the campus, right? And of course, it's inevitable or hindi maiiwasan that a Filipino is going to talk to them. If that happens, they may share some difficulties in learning one language to another. Baka sabihin nung African brother is, you know what, I thought that one Filipino is angry at me because he speaks in totally higher voice. Mga ganun, diba? And then the Filipino is going to say, no, that's a natural thing for us. No, that's a natural thing for us. We talk slightly. We. Ang daming sa pagitan. Kahit naman ako maraming fillers. Just like that. But in this one, we already have interactions. Ayun po. The first one, we just compare. In this one, we already have interactions. It should be intercultural. A Filipino talking to another Filipino has no or have no friction at all. Ano naman ganun, di ba? Sasabihin, ang hirap maging ano, no? Ang hirap maging Tagalog, kailangan mo mag-po and opo. May ganun ba? I don't know. Kung makarinig man ako, it would sound weird to me. Ayan. Culture, still in this topic, we talk about this. Multiple cultures exist in one society. That's one. We have subcultures. We have the LGBT culture. We have the culture involving people who listens to metal music. We have the emo culture. The emo culture almost died decades ago. Nagsimula siya noong 2001 hanggang 2014 or 13, ganyan. I know because I was part of the emo culture, mga one side ng buhok, mga ganyan. Tapos, well, it's nice to go back to your roots once in a while. Even you are part of a culture. Hindi pwedeng hindi. We can say that we are multicultural. You are part of another movement, pwedeng ganyan. Number two, multiple social communities coexist in a single society. So in this one, we are not just separate communities. For example, is the music community is not totally separate from the artists community, right? They may coexist or they may be in a competition, but the best one should be coexistence. For example, if you are an artist, you can collaborate with musicians to, let us say, provide album arts for their music, mga ganyan. And also we have the what do you call this? Yung community ng mga mekaniko, may mga ganun din eh. Will coexist with bikers. Bikers are also a community. Ayan. Car mechanics are a community. Vegetarians are also communities. If we have vegan community, eventually we are also going to have vegan market community or people who produce food for the vegans. Ayan. By the way, if you are a vegan, that's all well and good. It's totally okay, pero yung ayoko is yung na inis ako ng isang beses. I was talking about this cat na na euthanasia, mercy kill. Sa Amerika to eh. Nakita ko lang. Tapos nag-comment ako. Sabi ko, grabe naman yung amo, masungit lang yung pusa, papatayin agad. Yes, it's true. Hindi may nag-comment, oh talaga? Yung baka nga, hindi mo kinauwaan eh, ipokrito. And I was like, please do not include me in that. Kung yun ang inyong way of life, that's okay, totally okay. But forcing that to another person's throat is not okay. Mga ganyan. I'm just saying this because talaga, I don't know. Saan galing yung ganung sentiment. That's why marami na rin naiinis sa vegan community eh because of that attitude. It's almost the same as with some religious people na shove down yung beliefs. It works the same way for me. Okay. At hindi nyo napansin yung yung rant ko na bukas ko lang dahil sa vegetarian. If we have vegetarian or vegan community, we are also going to have vegan market community or people who produce food for vegans. Ganyan. And they are going to coexist. If they don't coexist, a community may suffer. You live your life in the context of a communicating set of individuals who transact a universe of thoughts and behavior that makes possible certain ways of treating other people. Yun nga, na yung rant ko naging example nito. As you can see, you live your life in a context of communicating set of individuals. That person, yung vegan na nakausap ko, may not represent the whole vegan community, but he or they are still a part of that community. They have this mentality, or some people have this mentality, some people na lang, para hindi natin malahat. And they are going to interact the way they would to you, which is outside of their community. Ganon. If you know a friend from the LGBT community, you are also going to notice this. Ayan. Sino ba may sabi nun? And I totally agree with that. Kung gusto mo daw maging masaya ang buhay mo, dapat at least may isa kang kaibigan from the LGBT community. I totally agree with that. They are fun people. Too bad that our country is more or less homophobic. Sana matanggal na rin yun, my goodness. Homophobia, even though it's sad to say, is another example of what do you call this? It's an example of interactions that can fall under this. You know that a homophobic person has a set of beliefs and values that he is going to communicate with a lot of people. That's a negative part. Also, we also have the positive part that you are going to communicate with a person from this community. And remember that those people have a universe of thoughts and behaviors within them. That's why you are going to be interacting in almost the same way. Same as this, the Black American community in US, right? They can use the N-word among themselves. They can also use the N-word for the white people. However, the white person cannot use that. Kasi sa kanila nang galing yung insulto na yun. Parang binabalik mo lang yung nakaraan. Insulto kasi yun pagka white person na nagsabi, di ba? Parang sa atin, if one person says, ano, bakla ka kasi eh. And the people included in that communication are both from the LGBT community, that's totally alright. But if a straight person says that, depende pa sa ano yun, sa context, right? Baka nangiinsulto or something like that. It will result to a different way of treating other people. Yung white person, magiging maingat siya to not say anything that would offend them. Mga ganon. If you are a cis person or a straight person, and you know that this person is from the LGBT community and they use different sets of pronouns, you are going to adjust yourself, di ba? Igalang na lang natin if Vice Ganda is using pronouns like she, her, we respect that. Mga ganun. It's the same way as this. Ayun po. Your conformity with society's and culture's belief and practice is constantly and almost invisibly reinforced in a daily talk that happens informally in interaction with such agents as your friends, so on and so forth. So your conformity, or in Filipino yung pagsunod mo, your conformity with the belief is almost not forced. Hindi ka pipilitin. And you are going to realize that you almost follow them unconsciously. Ayan. Parang in the LGBT community, for example, ito kasi naaalala ko lagi nagagamit ko. If they are fond of using pronouns, if they are assigning pronouns to themselves, you are not going to question that at some point and just use the pronoun as it is. If a person wants to use a they, you are not going to ask, bakit they ang gagamitin ko sa'yo? Iisa ka lang naman, di ba? No. You almost not ask questions and just take it as it is. The same way with other cultures. Like, even though you are in one culture, hindi mo natatanungin kung bakit nagpo-po at opo ka, di ba? No one asks that. Unless, of course, you are from a totally different culture. Like the American culture. Bakit gumagamit? Why are they using po and opo? And then when they found out the reason why, they are not going to question it. Hello po, para po sa tabi po. Ganun. And pardon my clumsy attempt at copying the American Tagalog. Society is a way of talking about coded system of meaning and set of beliefs, a heritage, and a way being that it's transacted in communication. We have these codes. We have this system of codes, of meanings. We have this set of meanings that we transact when we talk. Gawin na nating madali. Po and opo, right? Those are meanings. Those are codes. And we transact with people using those codes. You know that this person is elderly, so we are going to use po and opo. And that's how we transact with people. We use coded system. If this culture has their coded system, we use that for them. If this one also has their different set of code systems of meanings, we use them if we interact with them. Also, you are a part of a culture. You also have your code of coded system of meanings. You use that, and you unknowingly use that. You use po and opo as a Tagalog. Tagalog na. Ayun. You use po and opo as Tagalog, and that's it. If you go to the other parts of the Philippines, like the Visayan region, and you notice that they do not have in their system the use of po and opo, you are going to adjust yourself accordingly. Ayun. We also have this set of beliefs, right? Filipinos are superstitious people. We also have this heritage. You, especially the Catholics, hold fiestas because it's a part of the heritage. If you practice that, then you are a part of the society who practices those. Ganon. We have coded system of our own meanings that makes sense to us. Gamitin mo yung po and opo with a Norwegian. Pumunta ka ng Norway. Gamitin mo yung po and opo. Die alska day. Kalimutan ko yung ano. Die alska day po. Magigets lang nila yung unang part, pero yung po, hindi na. If you think that culture, tatapos na pala tayo. If you think of culture as a system of norms, rituals, belief, any group with a system of shared meanings is a culture. So even a friendship and romance could be a culture. Pwede yun. Oo. We share this same sentiments when it comes to friendship that we are going to talk about in the dimensions. Also in romance, di ba? Pagka nag-cheat tong tao na to, may that be a boy or a girl, may magagalit. Because we follow this culture na monogamous dapat. Pagka nag-cheat yung babae, magagalit tayo. Pag nag-cheat yung lalaki, magagalit din tayo. Pag inabuso yung babae, we are going to get angry or we must be angry. Pag inabuso yung lalaki ng isang babae, na malungkot lang, pinagtatawanan ng iba, but naturally as a human, we should also be angry. Ayan. Baka may hindi nakakaalam, kahit mga lalaki na abuso din sa relasyon. Lalaki at saka babae. Of course, I am not speaking through experience. Hindi naman ako nang-aabuso, and I am not planning to do that. Ayun. So, if you think that culture is a system of norms, yung normal, rituals, what you do, belief, what you believe at, norms is the parent of the word normal. Why? You do this, I do this, it's normal for us. I use po, you use po, it's normal for us. Ganun. You prepare fiestas, that's a ritual. You have rituals in your Catholic masses, that's rituals. If kaya pag may nakapansin na one Catholic notices that it's totally different from another one, ewan ko kung mali ako because I am not Catholic myself, baka magtanong siya, bakit iba dun sa yun, sa simbahan na yun, iba rin dito? Because of rituals, ganun. And also, friendship observes the same thing. We make friends with we think what is normal to us. We do things in the same way. Kaya nga magkakasama yung magkakapareho ng di ba? Magkakapareho yung tabas ng what is the word for that? Yung may sikmura something about sikmura. So ayun, last na lang tong slide. Drivers and public transport operators in organizations, even athletes, or members of business organizations could all be considered members of a unique culture because drivers have their own set of beliefs and what they consider as normal, which is totally different from bikers. Ayan. Kaya the biker community and the truck driver community are expectedly going to have the same culture. Even students and instructors, kahit kayo, kahit kami, we have different cultures. Ayun po. Kahit nga sabihin mo na you are all in the BPED course and you interact with eduk students, you are still going to notice some differences. Eduk pala kayo, no? Sorry. Baguhin natin, gawin natin engineering students. In eduk, especially in our school, kailangan mataas yung grade mo talaga eh. Kailangan wag siyang bababa ng 2.25 or else tanggal ka. Ganyan. And napapansin nila nag-aaral kami lagi, tapos na yung mga nasa BM is okay lang. Okay lang na mababa grade ko, hindi naman ako matatanggal sa BM. Sabi nung isa kong tropa na ganun. So as you can see, two different cultures. I am not saying na disclaimer lang, I am not saying na hindi masipag yung marami ding magagaling sa kanila, of course. All courses have their own strengths and they have their own cultures too. That's what we are talking about in here. Ayan, so tama na. And this recording is